When all of a sudden you can teach your mind to automatically label everything good, then all of a sudden your mind will filter everything in necessary to validate that point and prove you right. Welcome back to the Leaders Only podcast, where we talk about business, leadership, mindset, and just pretty much anything revolved around building an incredible life. You know, one of the reasons that I started this podcast is because I felt like on the way to where we're at now, there wasn't really a place to go to learn tangible skills that are needed in order to succeed and further yourself and just get better overall in every area of your life. And so some background about me, I built a sales company that does over 8 figures a year. I own over $10 million worth of real estate, and I built a multiple 7-figure income that's streamlined and in all honesty doesn't really need me. I plan on teaching you and documenting everything that I learned along the way. And if you get something out of today's message, if you can do me a favor, if you can like, share, and subscribe, it will give us the ability to further our message and help more people, which is what we're all about. Thank you guys so much. Let's dive in. And today we're going to be talking about how to win through adversity. And not just how to go through adversity, because everyone goes through adversity. Everyone will eventually make it out on the other side of adversity as long as they're still on this earth. We're going to talk about how to win through adversity. Because in all honesty, that's the separator. That's the separator between those who achieve greatness in their life and those that don't, right? Those that don't achieve greatness in their life, they typically play the victim role. They look at the adversity and they say, this is what's happening to me, or why is this always happening to me, or it's because of this problem, or this, or that, or the third. And those who are victorious in life are the ones that embrace adversity and change their relationship with adversity. And I'm going to go over exactly today how to do that, how to change your relationship with adversity. And the reason I would like to think that I'm a specialist in this category is because I have dealt with a lot of adversity. And to be honest with you, I used to not be good at handling it all. I used to deal with adversity in a very negative way. I used to deal with it either through anger and or through frustration, through emotional reaction, through coping mechanisms. And those aren't the healthiest thing for you. And so I've really grown to become great and not only facing adversity, but winning through it, changing my relationship with it, and looking at it more as a positive thing than a negative thing. And I'm going to be going over some of those strategies and tactics with you today. And I genuinely feel that they're going to make a huge difference in your life. So before I actually go into the strategies with you today, what I want to do is go over some of the quotes that have helped me through my journey in life, overcome obstacles, overcome adversity, and make it out on the other side. And I'm also going to give you some language on how to talk to yourself versus listen to yourself today, which is really going to be good. But I want to go over a couple of quotes that truly helped me. And so this first quote, I don't know who said it, but it's something that's always been on my mind. And it's that mental toughness is not making it through adversity. Mental toughness is winning through adversity. Because everyone makes it through adversity. The fact that you're listening to this right now, the fact that you have breath in your lungs right now, means that you've made it through adversity. But just because you've made it through adversity doesn't mean that you've become successful. Just because you made it through adversity doesn't mean that you built calluses on your mind in order to succeed in the next adversity. And so one of my favorite quotes is that mental toughness is not making it through adversity, but winning through adversity, because there's a big difference between allowing that adversity to be victorious over you and you being victorious over that adversity. And it all comes down to, can you achieve success even with adversity going on? Because that's where most people drop the ball. Most people can't continue to win and succeed even with adversity going on. So when problems pop up or situations pop up, all of a sudden it distracts them from their goals. It distracts them from what they're supposed to be doing. So that quote of mental toughness is winning through adversity, not making it through adversity, has always related a ton to me. The second quote is by the one and only Mr. Mike Tyson. And he said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's just the truth. Everyone has a plan going into 2024. Everyone has a plan for their goals, for their dreams, for their aspirations, and then they get punched in the face, and all of a sudden that plan is no longer being executed upon. That plan is no longer on their mind because they've been distracted, which means the adversity beat them, they didn't beat the adversity. So once again, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and you got to be willing to take the punches, know how to take the punches, and be prepared for those punches in order to stay on course and stay on target. And the last quote that I want to mention to you is by Jim Rohn, a famous entrepreneur. And he said that it's not the blowing of the wind, but the setting of the sail that determines where you're at. Because we all have the wind of life that's blown on us. We all have adversity. We all have situations. We all have problems. There's always situations in family or in business or in life or whatever it is. There's sometimes even health for some people, unfortunately. And the fact of the matter is, it's not the blowing of the wind, it's the setting of your sail. Because if we all have the same 100-mile-per-hour wind blown on us, or 200 mile, 300, 400, and I'm not saying that everyone's life is created equal or adversity is equal, but what I am saying is that life happens to all of us. It's not about the life that's happening to us, it's about the setting of your sail that's going to determine the destination and where you arrive at. And so we just got to make sure that our sail is set towards success, and however that looks like for you. Success in your marriage, success in the relationship you have with your children, success in your faith, your fitness, success financially and in business. We got to make sure that our sail is set in the right direction, or every single time that adversity comes, every single time that wind is blown on us, we're going to end up at a destination that we don't want to be at. So how about we do this? How about we dive into the 8 different strategies that will really help you in changing your relationship with adversity and allowing you to be victorious over it versus it being victorious over you. And you're going to want to stick around all the way to number 8, because 8 is how you claim your 7-fold return, right? 1 through 7 will teach you how to deal with the adversity, but number 8 will teach you how to claim the 7-fold return, so that way you can turn that adversity into a blessing, which is what it's all about. And so let's dive into the 8. So number 1, the first way to deal with adversity is by desensitizing yourself from the problem. And this is actually something that I learned from a guy named Alex Hermosi. And basically what he said that he just multiplies every adversity by 1,000. And let me explain what I mean. You know, let's say you had an adversity or a situation or a financial problem or whatever it is pop up, and you've already dealt with that problem 1,000 times before. Is it really going to be that big of a deal? Of course not, because you've already dealt with it time and time again. It's just another time that you're dealing with it. And so by doing this, it changes your perspective of the problem. It changes your confidence regarding the problem, because if you already dealt with it 1,000 times, then it's no big deal. I already know how to handle it. I've already done it before. So your confidence revolved around dealing with the adversity changes, okay? Think about it like this. The first date that you ever had with your wife or your husband or your spouse, your significant other, right? The first date that you ever went on, wasn't it a little bit nerve-wracking? Weren't the butterflies there? Weren't you a little bit nervous? Of course. But by the time you got to the 10th date or the 10,000th date, all of a sudden you were no longer nervous because you were already used to the person. You had a relationship with the person. So now all of a sudden, when you multiply the adversity by 1,000, that means that you have a relationship with that adversity 1,000 times. So it should no longer be nerve-wracking to you because your perspective has changed because you already have a relationship with it. So that's number 1. Number 2, we need to brace ourselves for adversity, because it's not a matter of if the adversity is coming, it's when the adversity is coming. And the more prepared we are for it, the easier it becomes to handle that punch. And let me explain what I mean. Earlier, I used the boxing quote by Mike Tyson, which was, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. But what if you're ready for that punch? Is it going to affect you as much as the person that just gets blindsided? Of course not, because the person that gets blindsided is not aware that that punch is coming, and so it's a lot easier to get knocked out at that point. But if all of a sudden I'm somebody who's taken many punches before, I'm always clenching my jaw, I'm always bracing for it, now all of a sudden I can take a lot more punches. This is the difference between a professional boxer and someone who's never been in a fight. The person that's never been in a fight gets hit and they're on the ground. The professional boxer has taken so many hits before that now all of a sudden certain punches don't faze them the same way as they did before because their tolerance is increased. So we need to increase our tolerance when it comes to dealing with adversity. And the only way to do that is brace ourselves for the punches, because the punches will come. So the third thing that we need to do, and this one has helped me a ton, is we need to compare the problem to the vision. Because when you have a big vision for your life, big goals, big dreams, big aspirations, now all of a sudden when problems pop up, they seem small, they seem micro to the macro vision, because what you're trying to do is so much more important, it's so much bigger than the problem and adversity that's in front of you. Think about it like this. If you have a problem or adversity and it's in your neighborhood, but your ambition and your goals is to change the entire world, and you're looking at your neighborhood, the neighborhood is so micro compared to the size of this world that it no longer becomes a big deal. And so I just encourage you that every single time adversity pops up or problems pop up, compare it to the vision, and you'll start to realize how small that problem actually is in the grand scheme of things. So think bigger, talk bigger, have bigger dreams and goals, and all of a sudden adversity becomes very micro to the macro vision. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have not had the opportunity to subscribe just yet, if you can go ahead and do that, that would be incredible. We have about 10,000 plus active listeners, and not all of you have subscribed just yet. So if you guys can go ahead and do that, that would be incredible. And hopefully you enjoy the rest of the episode. Number 4, we have to realize, and this one's blunt, but we're all going to die someday. We really are. And the fact that you're allowing adversity to take up a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month, a year, years of your life is just so unfortunate, because our life here on this earth is so short, it's so precious, and tomorrow's not guaranteed. The fact that you're allowing adversity or a problem to have so much authority over your life, that's a very sad thing. And so I just want to encourage you to realize that you're going to die someday, and the adversity that you're facing right now is not going to be that big of a deal. You've made it through every adversity in your life so far. This one's not going to be any different. So stop allowing it to take up so much energy, so much space in your life, because that energy could be going to loving your spouse. That energy could be going to spending time with your kids. But instead of that, you're thinking about a problem. Instead of that, you're allowing it to steal from your life. And so we just have to realize at one point we're going to die. Our time on this earth is precious. So let's not give it away to something that's honestly not that big of a deal. Number 5, don't listen to yourself, talk to yourself. Let me say it again. Do not listen to yourself, talk to yourself. So for me, every single time adversity pops up, I have a couple of things that I say to myself, and what it does is just snaps me back into reality, and it snaps me back into being a beast. Because I'm human, so when adversity pops up, it does affect me for a moment. It's just the reality. It happens for everyone. But once again, it's your ability to get back on track that determines whether or not you succeed. So these are some things that I say to myself that gets me back on track. The first one is this problem big or am I just being small? All right, is this problem big or am I just being a small person? And that right there hits my ego, and then it puts me back into being a bigger person so I don't allow the adversity to affect me. The second thing that I always say is, what's a problem to a giant? What's a problem to a giant? Is this really that big of a problem if I'm a giant? Of course not. So I changed my perspective from being small like the problem to being a giant and being larger than the problem. The third thing that I always say to myself is that if I was a bigger person, would this even be affecting me right now? If I was better, stronger, more mentally tough, would this even be affecting me right now? And typically the answer to that question is no. So once again, just me saying that snaps me back into reality. The fourth thing that I say to myself is, will this even be relevant in 5 years? In 5 years, am I even going to be thinking about this? In 5 years, am I even going to be dwelling on this? In 5 years, is this even going to be an issue in any way, shape, or form? And 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, pretty much almost every single time, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to be thinking about it or talking about it in 5 years. So why would I give it more than 5 minutes of my life? And last but not least, to make my point, I always ask myself this question. How would the best version of me deal with this problem? How would the best version of me deal with this adversity? And I create a list of what the best version of me would do, and then I just go take action towards that list. It's really that simple. Right? How would the best version of me handle this? I create the list, and then I go take action towards that list, because that's how the best version of me would handle it. And I want to be the best version of me, and I'm sure you want to be the best version of you. So create that list, and then just go execute, and bada bing, bada bow, you've beat it. Number 6 is we need to change our labeling, because there's no such thing as a positive and or a negative situation. All there is a situation, and how we label it will determine whether or not it becomes positive or negative. Because if we think about it, one person's positive could be another person's negative, and one person's negative can be another person's positive. It all comes down to perception. It all comes down to perspective. And let me give you an analogy. Let's say I invested money into a stock and another person shorted that stock. If the stock does well, I'm fired up, and the person who shorted it is not, because they just lost money. And vice versa. If I invest in that stock and it doesn't do well, the person who shorted it is going to be fired up because they made money, and I'm going to be upset because I lost money. And so in the grand scheme of things, neither one of them is right or wrong. They're just operating from 2 different perspectives. Is that stock good or bad? Well, to the person that made money, it's good. And to the person who lost money, it's bad. So what if we can change our thinking to label every situation as a good thing? Now what happens is our mind will go to work to filter in everything necessary to validate our belief that it's good. And so what I try to do is every single time a problem pops up, every single time adversity pops up, I try to teach my mind to automatically label it good. Even if I don't have any reason to believe it's good yet, I try to automatically label it good. Because the moment I label it good, my mind starts working, and my mind starts looking for everything around me, everything in my surroundings, to prove and validate my belief that it's good. So now it will look for the blessing. It will look for the association that's a good association and or good relationship that comes from it. It will look for the blessing. It will look for the good relationship. It will look for the benefit that came from this. Because through every adversity, there's a greater blessing. We just got to look for it. And so when all of a sudden you can teach your mind to automatically label everything good, then all of a sudden your mind will filter everything in necessary to validate that point and prove you right. Number 7 is we need to compare our adversity to someone else's adversity that's much greater than our own. And this one I have an emotional attachment to, and this one really helped me so much in my career. And so a lot of you guys know that my dad battled cancer for about 14 years before he passed away. And my dad was one of the greatest men that ever walked this earth. I really believe that. He's just one of the most integrity-driven men. I never heard him raise his voice. I never heard him speak ill of another human being. Everyone loved him. He was just honest. He was a good person. He didn't curse. He never smoked. He never drank. He just was one of the most integrity-driven people that I'd ever met. to the point that his business was called Bryan Integrity Services. He never missed a game. He was my coach. He never missed an event. It didn't matter what was going on in his life. No matter what, he always showed up for me and my brothers. He always showed up for my mom. Just an incredible person. And so as my dad fought cancer, there was so much adversity, right? He was told 5 times that he had 3 months to live. I literally watched my dad get hooked up to an IV almost every single day. I remember being there, helping my dad shave his head. I remember watching my dad shave his head as tears were coming down his eyes. I just remember my dad fighting cancer. And so for me, every single time adversity were to pop up, I would just compare what it is that I had to face to what he was facing. And it made me grateful for what I had to face, because there was phone calls that I didn't want to make in my business. But then all of a sudden I would look at what he was going through, and I realized that I was blessed to only have to make a phone call today. I would look at maybe a setback that I had in business, and at the time I would think it's the end of the world. And then I would compare it to my dad, who was literally fighting for his life and fighting to stay in this world. And what it made me realize is that the adversity that I was facing in my business or my life wasn't that big of a deal. And so for me, I always compared my adversity to the adversity that my dad was going through. And it made me grateful and feel blessed about the adversity that I had, because my dad would do anything to be able to have the opportunity to do what it is that I was doing, versus being in a hospital bed, versus fighting for his life, versus being in so much pain that was involved in fighting cancer. And so it just made me grateful, and it changed my perspective. So if I can encourage you, it'd be to compare the adversity that you're going through to someone else's that's facing a greater adversity. And then it will make you grateful and blessed to only have to deal with your own. And last but not least, number 8 is we need to claim our 7-fold return. And basically what that means is that we need to claim our blessing that comes with every adversity. You know, this guy by the name of Greg Kapp, who I respect more than anything in this world, and one thing that he always said that stuck with me is that on the other side of every adversity, there's a greater than or equal to blessing waiting on the other side, but you have to claim it. And in my opinion, the only way for you to claim it is if you go through adversity with honor. Because there's a lot of people that go through adversity and they ruin relationships in the process. There's a lot of people that go through adversity and they're rude in the process because their feelings are hurt or they're negative or whatever it might be. They don't handle themselves in an integrity-driven, honorable way. And so I believe that good intentions get blessed, and I believe that honorable people get blessed. And so when all of a sudden adversity pops up and you make the conscious decision, the intentional decision, I'm going to go through this adversity with integrity. I'm going to go through this adversity with a positive mind. I'm going to go through this adversity and grow my relationships, not ruin them. I'm going to go through this adversity and I'm going to turn it into a blessing versus blame the world and turn myself into a victim. I'm going to go through this adversity with good intentions and with the intention to better my life and the intention to better the lives of other people. I'm not going to go through this adversity with a spiteful, negative mind. And I genuinely believe that when you do that, it qualifies you for the 7-fold return versus disqualifying you because you did not do it the right way. And so I just want to challenge you and I want to encourage you. When adversity pops up, go through it with honor, because if you don't, it will disqualify you from the 7-fold return. But if you go through adversity with integrity and with honor, it qualifies you for that 7-fold return, which means that blessings will come your way on the other side of that adversity. And so if you got something out of today, if you can do me a favor, if you can like this, share this, comment, tell everyone about it, it would really mean the world to me, because obviously we put out all this information for free, and all we ask is that if you get something from it, you share the information. So hopefully today helped. Hopefully today we equipped you with the mindset necessary to deal with adversity, and not just deal with it, but face it, conquer it, and become victorious over it. Hopefully you learned some things that can help you with that, and hopefully you learned some things that can bless you in your journey to success in every area of your life. So God bless, enjoy your day, and we will see you guys next week on another episode of the Leaders Only Podcast.